This video today is a look at the relatively new shotgun carriers from Invictus Practical. These are aimed at load 2 and quad load methodologies for reloading your shotgun, particularly for 3-gun and other shotgun specific competitions. This particular model is the 2.8 model aimed at quad load. And also with the shell spacing, you can do load 2 on it. And we'll get to showing some of that in a second. I also want to give a little bit of credit to Invictus Practical. I've talked to the owner a little bit over email, and he's been extremely personable and very open about hearing about the product and what I thought of it. But basically when you get it, it comes in the box. He's got a nice label showing exactly which product that you ordered, and even breaking down to which hook you ordered. They offer the EOS and the TMMS, the quick detach hooks. When you open it up, the aluminum main plate with the shell holders, shell clips are attached already. But the adapter is in its own 2-point adapter. It's in its own bag. The hardware is in its own bag, and then whatever quick detach hook for your belt system is in its own little bag packaged nicely. And then he's got the fold out directions of how to assemble this thing, and showing some configs. Overall, the directions were pretty well done. It wasn't clear, particularly on step 9, that this spacer needed to go on a binding post, but it was real easy to figure out. So just be aware of that. Not a big deal. But overall, nice and clear directions. Very professional. The owner's done a nice job of setting these up. It's a little bit confusing when you go on the website and basically all the different products they have. But one way to think about it is the 2-point products. In this case, this is called the 2.8, but the 2-point, you can basically think of it as having that angled adapter in there. So, I can mount my hook straight on my belt, which is nice for the EOS to leave these plates straight instead of having to angle them like that, which I've had to do for some pistol mag pouches. I can leave them straight and get them a little bit tighter together, and then that means fitting more shells on my belt, which is a good thing. And then just angle the actual shell carrier based off that angled adapter, and then be able to individually angle them based on where I have them on my belt. The first topic we'll touch on is the material that these carriers are made out of. As you can see, they're very clean. They have a nice finish. This particular setup I got with the EOS hook, because that's the setup I run on my belt. But you've got a nice aluminum plate here. In this model, it's adjustable for angle, so there's an angle adapter plate that we'll cover in a little bit later. You've got stainless steel hardware. You've got Delrin clips that are laser cut. More stainless steel hardware. And you can see here, you've got nylock bolts with screws there that retain these Delrin clips to the aluminum plate. That's a nice feature, just because you're not going to be wearing out plastic threads. Everything is very nicely finished. It's got nice rounds on it. The plastic is fairly well rounded up around here. On these edges here, maybe a touch sharp, but not a huge deal because you're not really grabbing there too much. Usually coming over the top, and these have nice rounds on them. One thing you'll note on these is I've got it set up for weekend loading. So if this was on my belt, and get this clip on here, this is on my belt, it'd be facing the front like this. This would be my front of body in this direction. So my hand's coming over like this. Now you can see the elevation difference of the clips on this side over here. What that means is when I grab the 4 shells off this side, these are not protected per se, but my hand isn't hitting them. So I'd grab the 4 shells here, bring them out, load them, and then come down and grab shells here and go load them. So that's a nice feature there. and getting the shells very close together, but keeping you from interfering with them. Now, you also notice is how the shell clips are arranged. You'll see that these are basically nested together. There's only one wall thickness between the shells. That gets the shells closer together and easier to grab. In this view, you can see what the 8 shells loaded up and basically the quad load config would look like. You can see how those shells are staggered in elevation, such that when you bring your hand over, you grab here, pull them out, you didn't even touch those other shells, and you come down, and now you've got room to grab the next 4 shells. Simple as that. The clips seem to retain pretty well. I've only used them for a few minutes of some loading runs in the garage, and the angle on them is great. That elevation on them works well, and they seem pretty secure. We'll have to get them in match conditions before really evaluating them. But initial look at this with the materials they use, the hardware that's used, and the versatility is pretty impressive. Another thing to note with these carriers is you're not just limited to just doing quad load. For example, you got into a stage situation where you wanted to separate your shells based on, if you had to go to slugs or what have you. You've got, let's say your bird shot on this side, you pull those off, and then you could distinguish between you have slugs or, a different load here. Or if you have a different load order, you load your 4 on this side, and you'd have your load 2 like that. So you're not limited to just the quad. You can go to 2 and just do load 2. If you only need a limited count on a particular stage and want to keep it simple, you can just go run load 2 out of these same carriers. Okay, I've pulled the ELS hook off of this particular carrier. In this view, then we can see the angled adapter and how easy it is basically to adjust your angle that you'd want to be set up at. You'd basically just pull this plate off. You don't even have to pull all the way off this bottom binding post here, and you would just change the angle you want and then press it back down. Simple as that. And then the way I have it set up on my belt, let's back up a second here and get a wider view. I load the weak hand, so I keep my gun in my firing hand. So with my support hand, weak hand, I'm coming across my body. Body's facing this way, and I'm grabbing like this. So I want the natural angle of my wrist and hand angled so it falls right in line with the shells. I'm not having to cock my wrist this way or over far this way, having a horizontal. So I can put a nice angle on these. You can kind of see that there. So if you need, let's say you were loading a strong hand, flipping the gun up on your shoulder, you could actually turn these and angle them all the way around. And to do so, you'd actually flip this plate. You'd take it off, put these bushings in the binding post pointing the other way, and you just flip this plate 180, and that gives you angle going back the other way. So if you're doing a strong hand, you'd be angled off this way. Whatever hand you load with, in my case, weak hand, you want the high side away from you, away from that hand, because you want to be pulling from the high side and avoiding these lower shells, and then working your way down the shells that way. So in my case, I've got these, let's say I've got these right at my 12 o'clock, right at the front of my belt line. I would have the next ones coming around my belt as long as I want to keep loading weak hand, and I would have this high side towards my middle line, middle of my belt, all the way around. So that way I'm pulling the shells and just working right down the line. So these are set up really nice. The adjustability is really nice, so I can't wait to get them into match conditions.